two of the largest religions on earth. Both claim to honor women. Both have been accused for centuries of oppressing them. Both are right, and both are wrong, depending entirely on which verse you're looking at. Today, we're going into the actual texts: marriage, divorce, inheritance, who gets to teach, who gets to lead, who gets remembered. Not what people assume the Quran says, not what people assume the Bible says, what they actually say, word for word, verse by verse. And where it gets uncomfortable for both sides, because it will, we're not going to look away. This is Two Perspective. But here's the truth. The Islamic material alone is massive. Dozens of rights, dozens of texts, and centuries of scholarship. There's no way to cover all of it in a single film. So today, we're focusing on the core claims, the ones scholars cite the most. If you want a deeper dive or more episodes on specific rights, let me know in the comments. And if you want this series to continue, like the video and subscribe. All right, let's begin. We're not telling you which faith treats women better. We're showing you the strongest evidence on every side and letting the disagreements stand. First fork in the road. What happens when a man and a woman get married? Start with the contract itself. In Islamic law, marriage is a contract, nikah, and it requires something most people don't expect: a mandatory payment from the groom to the bride, not her family, her directly, called mahar. It's her property, not a family transaction, hers to keep, to invest, to spend, regardless of what happens to the marriage later. That's the empowering half. Here's the other half. The Quran, chapter 4, verse 34, uses a word, qawamun, usually translated protectors and maintainers, though translators genuinely disagree on how much authority that implies, some rendering it closer to in charge of, others closer to responsible for. Most classical scholars read it as establishing formal authority with the husband, though the schools of law differed on how far that authority actually extended. Now cross to Christianity. Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 22. Wives, submit to your own husbands, as to the Lord. Verse 23. The husband is the head of the wife. Structurally, that's the same shape as 434. Authority assigned to the husband by Scripture, not by culture. But verse 21, one line earlier, complicates it. Submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. Some scholars argue that changes everything. Submission was never meant to be one-directional. And verse 25 tells husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. A total sacrificial standard, not a license to command. So in both faiths, you find the same tension in the same place. Real structural authority assigned to men in the text, sitting right next to real textual limits on how that authority can be used. Here's where it gets sharper. What happens when the marriage ends? Divorce. Picture a woman in 7th century Medina. Her husband has struck her. Before sunrise, she's at the Prophet's door. Her name was Habiba bint Sahal. Sahih al-Bukhari records what happened next. The Prophet asked her husband, Thabit ibn Qais, to release her, and told her only to return the garden he'd given her as her dowry. Early scholars, including Ahmad ibn Hanbal, described this as the first recorded khul, a wife-initiated divorce in Islamic history. The Quran itself backs this directly. Chapter 2, verse 229. If a wife fears she cannot maintain the marriage within the bounds set by God, there is no sin on either party in what she gives up to be released. Here's the asymmetry, though. A husband divorces by simply pronouncing talaq. A wife seeking khul generally needs her husband's agreement or a judge's ruling, and she typically forfeits her mahr to do it. Unilateral for him, negotiated and costly for her. Now, Christianity. Jesus is asked directly, can a man divorce his wife for any reason? Matthew chapter 19. No. What God has joined together, let not man separate. Only exception named, sexual immorality. And Mark's gospel makes something explicit that many assume didn't exist in the ancient world at all. Verse 12 states that if a wife divorces her husband, she too commits adultery, grammatically treating the wife as a moral agent capable of initiating divorce, not simply someone divorce happens to. So, Islamic law gives women a formal, nameable legal mechanism, khul, that's harder to use than the man's. Jesus' teaching restricts divorce almost completely for men and women alike, arguably the strictest version on either side. And centuries of Christian denominations have disagreed ever since about how strictly to enforce it and who initiated it. Neither side gets to claim an easy win here. Now to money. Who actually owns anything? Inheritance and property. Quran, chapter 4, verse 11. The most quoted inheritance law in the Muslim world. The share of the male is like that of two females. It's one of the most frequently cited pieces of evidence that Islamic law treats women as worth less than men. Here's the part almost never included alongside it. The same verse fixes shares for mothers, wives, and daughters as an independent, guaranteed legal right. Something no woman in pre-Islamic Arabia held at all. Before this verse, women were often inherited as property themselves, not entitled to inherit anything. And the ratio isn't universal. Between a mother and father inheriting from a childless deceased child, verse 11 gives the mother 1/3 and the father 2/3, the same 2-to-1 logic. But in other configurations, elsewhere in the same chapter, shares land differently depending on the surviving relatives, not a flat rule that men always get double no matter what. Many classical jurists explained the 2-to-1 ratio through obligation, not value. Men carried the Islamic legal duty to financially maintain the household. Women's inherited wealth was legally theirs alone, with no obligation to spend it on anyone. Modern reformist scholars argue that reasoning doesn't hold up as cleanly in today's economy, but the guaranteed share itself hasn't moved. Picture two siblings splitting the same inheritance today under a rule 14 centuries old. For the sister in that split, her share was hers outright. No husband, no father, no brother could touch it. Now, Christianity. And here's a genuine surprise. There is no equivalent New Testament inheritance law at all. No verse assigns fixed shares to sons and daughters, which means everything most people associate with historical Christian inheritance. Eldest sons inheriting everything, daughters inheriting nothing, married women losing control of property to their husbands, comes from somewhere else entirely. Roman law, and later, English common law's doctrine of coverture, which held that a married woman's legal identity merged into her husband's. That's a crucial distinction. Coverture is a legal historical practice most associated with Christian majority societies. It is not a biblical commandment. The New Testament simply never legislates inheritance at all, leaving the question entirely to whatever legal system Christians happen to live under. So, Islamic law gives an explicit, textual, guaranteed share to women, smaller than a man's in the most common configuration, but legally hers outright. Christian societies, for most of history, gave women far less in practice, but that outcome came from Roman and English law, not from the Gospels themselves. Which raises an uncomfortable question for both sides. Which matters more, what the text says, or what got built on top of it? That same question follows us into a courtroom. Who gets believed in court? Quran, chapter 2, verse 282. The longest verse in the entire Quran, and the source of one of the most repeated criticisms of Islamic law. A woman's word is worth half a man's. Read what it actually regulates, though. This verse is specifically about witnessing long-term debt contracts, 2 men or 1 man and 2 women, so that if one of them errs, the other can remind her. It's the only verse in the Quran that assigns a specific number of witnesses by gender for a financial contract. Every other legal or moral context in the Quran, inheritance disputes, criminal accusations, the mutual oath procedure for adultery accusations in chapter 24, treats male and female testimony as equal in weight. Classical jurist Ibn Rushd, writing in the 12th century, noted this was a specific, narrow ruling for financial contracts, not a general statement about women's reliability. Christianity has no direct textual equivalent to legislate here at all. The New Testament doesn't set courtroom evidence rules by gender. But history is still uncomfortable for this side too. For centuries, canon law and various European legal systems restricted or discounted women's court testimony on their own separate grounds, again through law built around the faith, not commanded inside its central text. So, once again, a specific, narrow Quranic rule gets treated globally as a universal claim about women's worth. And a Christian legal history shaped by exclusion gets a pass, because the exclusion isn't actually written into the Gospels. Precision cuts both ways. It's just rarely applied evenly. Now, who gets to stand at the front of the room and teach? Education and religious authority. Here's a hadith quoted in Islamic classrooms worldwide. Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Worth being honest about it, though. Recorded in Sunan Ibn Majah, Hadith 224, its individual chain of transmission is considered weak by several Hadith scholars. What makes it accepted anyway is a different principle. Enough separate, independently weak chains corroborating each other that scholars like al-Suyuti graded the meaning sound even though no single chain is strong on its own. And every Muslim, in the Arabic, includes women explicitly, not as an afterthought. The proof isn't just theoretical. Aisha, one of the Prophet's wives, became one of the most cited hadith narrators in Islamic history. Generations of scholars for 14 centuries have built entire areas of Islamic law on her authority as a source. Now, Christianity, and this is where it gets genuinely contested inside Christianity itself today. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She is to remain quiet. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34. Women should remain silent in the churches. Those 2 verses are among the most argued over sentences in the entire modern debate about Christianity and women. One reading, called complementarian, takes them as a permanent binding structure. Teaching authority in the church belongs to men. Major denominations hold this view today. The Catholic Church holds it. So do many Southern Baptist and Reformed churches. All of them restrict ordained teaching authority to men on this textual basis. A second reading, egalitarian, argues these verses addressed a specific local problem in specific first-century congregations, not a timeless rule, and points to Priscilla in Acts chapter 18, correcting a male preacher's theology alongside her husband, and Phoebe, called a diakonos, a deacon, of her own congregation in Romans chapter 16. For millions of women alive today, those 2 verses decide whether they can stand at the pulpit at all. Both readings are working from the same New Testament. They reach opposite conclusions about what it requires today. Which brings us to the sharpest question either faith has to answer. Can a woman actually lead? Public leadership 656 AD. A civil war inside the young Muslim community, and leading one army personally on a camel in the middle of the battlefield, Aisha, the Prophet's widow. The Battle of the Camel. She lost, but she led, a fact essentially undisputed across every historical account, Sunni or Shia. One companion, Abu Bakr, later cited a hadith to justify not joining her side. "Never will a people prosper who entrust their affairs to a woman," recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari 4425 and 7099, said in response to news that a Persian emperor's daughter had taken the throne. That hadith has been used for 14 centuries to argue women can't hold political power in Islam. Here's what almost never gets mentioned alongside it. So, is the case against women in political power really that simple? Classical fiqh already debated Abu Bakr's general reliability as a witness, because earlier in his life, he was punished for false testimony in an accusation case, and Islamic law treats that punishment as grounds to question someone's testimony afterward. What's newer is applying that same classical doubt specifically to this hadith. Scholars including Fatima Mernissi and Jamal al-Banna have made exactly that argument in modern times. That if his testimony is doubted generally, this particular report shouldn't be treated as beyond question either. The hadith was said about one foreign monarchy in crisis. Most classical scholars still read it as a general rule, not a one-time comment. Reform-minded scholars argue that's a misreading of something meant to be specific and situational. Meanwhile, in the same tradition, Waraka is reported to have led her own household in prayer, with the Prophet's permission, including men, according to several classical accounts, though scholars have long debated how far that precedent extends. Hafsa, another of his wives, was entrusted with keeping the compiled master manuscript of the Quran, the same text Caliph Uthman later used as the base for the standardized copies distributed across the empire. Now, Christianity. Junia, Romans chapter 16, verse 7, called by Paul outstanding among the apostles. For centuries, translators read her name as the masculine Junius, an assumption baked into how the ancient Greek was handled, since early manuscripts had no accent marks to fix the gender at all, and a woman being called an apostle struck many later readers as unlikely enough to read against. Modern textual scholarship has restored her as Junia, a woman called an apostle by Paul himself. And today, some Christian traditions ordain women as priests, pastors, and bishops. The Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodoxy do not, citing the same complementarian reading of Scripture from the previous chapter. Both faiths, it turns out, share a strikingly similar shape, a restrictive tradition built partly on a contested source, sitting right alongside real historical examples of women who led anyway. So, where does 14 centuries of disagreement actually leave us? Two perspectives, side by side. Lay all of it on the table. Islam, a guaranteed inheritance share, smaller than a man's in the most common case, but legally hers outright. A narrow, oft misquoted testimony rule limited to debt contracts. A wife-initiated divorce mechanism that's real, but costlier for her to use than his. A hadith questioning female political rule, resting on a genuinely contested narrator. Christianity. No scriptural inheritance law at all. Good news and bad news simultaneously, since later Christian societies built restrictive property law without any biblical mandate to do so. Two contested verses currently dividing entire denominations over whether women can teach. A named female apostle, whose own name was misread out of translations for centuries. A near-total restriction on divorce that applies to men and women equally, arguably the strictest position of the two. None of that fits on a bumper sticker. Neither faith is simply the empowering one or the restrictive one. Every single topic we covered contains real evidence for both. What both faiths actually share is this: a founding text making one claim, and 14 or 20 centuries of interpretation, culture, law, and reform arguing about what that claim actually requires. A wife who returned a garden to walk free. A widow who led an army and lost. An apostle whose name was quietly changed for 1,000 years. A verse about debt contracts misquoted for centuries as something else entirely. Both traditions gave women real textual rights that we rarely hear about. Both traditions have been used by their own followers to take rights away. We're not going to tell you which faith got it right. That was never what this film was for. Two kinds of evidence. Two ways of seeing the same question. Tell us which reading you find more convincing, and extend the same respect to whoever answers differently. This has been Two Perspective. Thanks for watching.